You awake?
Are 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 you awake?
Awake.
Are you awake?
Daddy, you still awake?
Still awake.
Are you awake?
Of course I'm awake.
Frank, are you awake?
Doctor, are you awake?
Hey, sorry, are you awake?
Hey, are you awake? Brian, are you awake?
Sweetie, are you awake? Jane, are you awake?
You are wide awake.
Michael, are you awake?
Are you guys awake?
Boog, are you awake?
Lucy, are you awake? How are you awake?
Are you awake, Miles?
Jim, you awake?
Are you awake?
Simon, are you awake?
Good. You are awake.
Eddie, are you awake? Homer, are you awake?
Eric, are you awake?
Norman, are you awake?
Are you awake? Shidoshi?
Xander, are you awake? Are you awake?
Still awake?
Frankie, are you awake?
Why are you so awake?
Hector, are you awake?
Robin, you awake?
Are you awake?
Rose, are you awake?
You
are awake, Boomer.
Hello, are you awake?
Are you awake, Charlotte?
You awake?
Are we awake?
They are awake.
What are you doing awake?
Artie, are you still awake?
Are you awake or not?
Here you are, finally awake.
Oh, Mitchell, are you awake?
John, are you awake?
Are you awake now?
Yeah.
Thank God you are awake.
Shannon, are you awake?
You still awake?
I know you are awake.
Vito, are you awake?
Max, are you awake?
Johnny, you awake?
Clyden, why are you awake?
Cleveland, are you awake?
Miss Blanche? Are you awake?
Dad, are you still awake?
Are you saying nobody's awake?
Are you awake, Chief?
How are you so awake?
Hey, Alan, you awake?
Why are you still awake?
Martin, are you awake?
Stay awake.
Are you awake? Jimmy, are you awake, dear?
Yes, Mother. I am awake.
You awake?
You awake?
You awake?
You awake?
You awake?
You awake?
You awake? You awake?
You awake?
Are you awake?
You awake?
You awake?
Are the children awake?
Are you awake?
Help you stay awake.
My darling girl, you are awake.
Are you awake now?
Yes.
Are you snoring while you're awake?
Arch, are you awake? Arch?
Hey, what are you doing awake?
What are you still doing awake?
So, why are you still awake?
Why are you still awake?
Are you still awake?
I've never been more awake in my life.
What's wrong?
I'm awake. I'm awake. I'm awake. I'm awake.
I'm awake. I'm awake.
He's awake.
Stay awake. Stay awake.
She's awake. She's awake.
How are they still awake?
I tried the vac.
Grizz, are you awake, bro?
Trixie! Trixie, it's Starlight! Are you awake?
Hey, are you awake?
Are you awake? Is this a dream? Why are you awake at 4 a.m.?
Good morning, Betty. Are you awake yet?
Must stay awake. Stay awake.
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 Awake. Awake. Awake.
Awake.
You were awake.
You are awake? Hey, you awake?
So are you awake?
You lie awake. George, you awake?
Dad, you awake?
You awake?
Zap, you awake?
Reese, you awake? Yeah.
Leona, you awake?
Are you awake?
Dad,
You awake?
You awake?
Dad, you awake?
Ida, you awake? It's
Hey, you awake? What? You awake? Hey, you awake?
Dad, you awake?
You guys awake?
Keeps you awake. You awake? You look awake.
Very good. You awake?
Jason, you awake?
You always awake when I watch you.
Stay awake. Stay awake, you hear me?
Johnny's awake.
Stay awake.
Must stay awake.
Stay awake! Stay awake! Stay awake! I'm awake already!
I'm awake. I'm awake.
I'm awake! I'm awake! What?
Stay awake, sweetie. Stay awake.
He's awake. Oh,
Are you awake now, Lucinda? Yes, of course.
Are you awake? What? What time is it? What?
You drinking a lot to keep awake?
but no, for our purposes, you are awake.
Awake again you are, my little friend.
Emma, what's up, honey? Are you awake, sweetheart?
Are you awake?
We're moving!
They're finally awake.
Harvey.
Ascertain whether they are awake or dormant.
Awake, are ya?
I am now.
Too late. The kids are awake.
I'm awake. What are we doing?
He says that only a few people are awake.
What are you doing awake? I hate you all.
Are you still awake?
You're awake. Told you. Hey, vagina! You awake? Hey, guy, you awake?
You awake?
Oh, yes, Sherry.
Hey, you still awake?
He's awake, you know.
Ah, you're awake.
You wanted him awake.
When you wake, the thing.
Louise, you awake, baby?
And when you wake.
Hey, you awake too?
Greg, you were awake.
Hey, Principal, you awake?
I'm totally awake. I'm awake.
I'm awake.
Ow, okay, I'm awake.
Honey, you're awake?
I'm awake.
Gotta stay awake. Gotta stay awake.
Awake! Awake! Ring the alarm bell!
You stay awake! Stay awake!
We need you to stay awake, okay? Stay awake.
Navarro's awake.
Wide awake.
Grandfather's awake.
He's awake!
Andy's awake.
She's awake.
Riley's awake.
Tobor, awake!
Awake already?
Someone's awake.
So awake.
Awake.
God damn it, man, what the fuck is going on here?
Are you awake?
We're the ones who stay awake.
Sky's awake. So I'm awake. So we have.
Little help.
He's awake. He's awake.
Johnny, what happened?
He's awake.
Is it keeping you awake?
You slept here?
I'm awake. You need to stay awake.
What you doing awake, Mike? Sam, bless you, you're awake.
What are you still doing awake?
You stayed awake all night.
Were you awake for that?
I knew you were awake, and I need you awake.
By the time you're awake,